I find it interesting how we fight the Flexile Sentry once again down here in the depths of Sinner's Rise. In the original version of Dark Souls 2, we actually fought several enhanced undead down here, and I think that's peculiar because the enhanced undead have stronger lore ties to another area in this game, so their placement here was always a little confusing to me. The Flexile Sentry, on the other hand, has much stronger lore ties to the Lost Bastille, so I can see why they switched him out here. So yes, another round against the Flexile Sentry, this time without Lucatiel's help. With Lucatiel of Mira summoned and the Bastille Key, I'm fully prepared for this upcoming boss fight. The Bastille Key is significant because it actually makes this boss fight a little easier. The arena this fight takes place in is very dark, but with the Bastille Key you can unlock these side doors, which allows you to illuminate the arena the boss fight takes place in. It was previously much more difficult to obtain the Bastille Key, as you had to fight another boss fight to obtain it, so there was a bit more of a risk-reward factor with the Bastille Key in Dark Souls 2. In Scholar of the First Sin, however, they made the difficulty of obtaining the Bastille key much simpler. With that, we have defeated our first Old One of Dark Souls 2. The Lost Sinner is usually the first Old One that players will come across in Dark Souls 2, and in terms of overall difficulty, it's probably the easiest of the 4 Old Ones as well. However, the Lost Sinner has some really compelling lore. The soul of the Lost Sinner reads, "Soul of the Lost Sinner, prisoner of sinners rise. The Lost Sinner eternally punishes herself for the sins of her past." The sin that the Lost Sinner is punishing herself for is trying to recreate the first flame. And this ties back to the original Dark Souls, specifically a character named the Witch of Izalith. The Witch of Izalith is one of the beings who received a Lord Soul from the first flame, but as the first flame started to fade, the Witch of Izalith attempted to recreate the first flame through her magic. But in doing so, she ended up turning into a horrific monstrosity known as the Bed of Chaos. And the Bed of Chaos is where all the demons of the Dark Souls universe are birthed from. It's implied that the 4 Old Ones are descendants or sort of reincarnations of the great lords of old. And the Lost Sinner is a very interesting reflection of the Witch of Izalith. One more interesting thing of note is that at the heart of the Bed of Chaos was this demon bug, which was actually the weak point of the whole creature. And in the intro cinematic for the Lost Sinner boss fight, we see a very similar shaped bug crawl into the Lost Sinner's eye, suggesting that this bug is maybe possessing the Lost Sinner and is what compelled it to try to recreate the first flame. So the Lost Sinner shares many ties with the Witch of Izalith. And with the soul of the Lost Sinner, we are one step closer to reaching our main goal with King Vendrick.
Still a bit stiff, I'm afraid. I must thank you, young traveler. I am Strayed, a wandering sorcerer of sorts. I've been a guest for a very long time, but I don't think that anybody will miss me. Very good. Very good indeed. Cursed one, weak you may be, but I, Strayed, will teach you my spells.
Strayed is a very neat character. Not only is he a great sorcerer who gives you access to really spiffy sorceries and pyromancies, but he also allows you to trade boss souls with him, giving you access to some really neat boss weapons. What's even cooler about him, though, is his backstory, which is revealed in his armor set. The Black Hood reads, Strayed was invited to the old kingdom of Olafese for his wisdom, but its depth was such that people soon feared him, and in the end, Strayed was led into a dreadful trap. And he remained frozen in stone for an untold amount of time. The Black Robes read, Strayed spent several lifetimes as stone. During this hiatus, kingdoms rose and fell, until the land called Drang Lake came to be. This info here, combined with what he says in his dialogue, confirms that Strayed is one of the oldest characters we meet in the game, and that he has no real knowledge of the kingdom of Drang Lake outside of what we tell him, because at one point, the kingdom was known as Olafese. And that's another big theme of Dark Souls 2. The kingdoms rise and fall on this very spot, and that Drang Lake isn't the first great kingdom in this land. There have been many before. Strayed will continually mock us as we come here for spells and weapons, but he's a very neat character, and he gives us some really interesting insight into the history of the kingdom.
The bell belongs to the princess, it do. Stay back or we slice you to bits. Near my chums, we shan't be miffed. Stay back or your pieces, tiniest pieces. A long time ago, the princess, she made me, yes, just like so. To guard this bell for the prince's honour. Stay away, foul undead, or you'll be a goner. Stay back! It belongs to the princess, it do! You wish to guard the bell, you do. For the prince and the princess forever, for true. Useless fool, filthy undead! Be gone right now and it's off with your head!
So we discover another one of the covenants of Dark Souls 2, the Bellkeeper Covenant, and the main goal of the Bellkeepers is revealed in their seal. Ring of the Bellkeeper Covenant. Join this covenant and wear this ring to be automatically summoned to the world of an invader of the Bellkeeper's domain. The twin bells symbolize the bond between two lovers who could never be united. The Bellkeepers are their eternal guardians, for that is their love. That is their curse. So this story is actually sort of similar to classic tales like Romeo and Juliet, two star-crossed lovers from warring houses who could never truly be together. The names of these two lovers are never said, but one of them came from the kingdom of Alkin, the other from the kingdom of Ven, and each one created a bell tower as a sign of love for the other. And the Bellkeepers were created to be the guardians of these towers. I think the Bellkeepers were created through some type of magic, as they're unlike any other creature I've seen in the series, and their sanity is very questionable. I was actually very surprised I didn't get invaded by anyone in my time in Belfry Luna. The Bellkeeper Covenant is really great if you like PvP, as you can have some really great fights with other players in these arenas. But most of all, I love the story behind it, as I find that's what makes the Bellkeeper Covenant one of the more intriguing in the game. Another Redux fight from Dark Souls 1, but instead of just 2 gargoyles, we're fighting a whole bunch of them. I do rather enjoy this boss fight though, and as far as lore goes, there actually isn't too much lore for the Belfry gargoyles. Their soul simply reads, "Soul of a gargoyle of the Lost Bastille. The elaborate stone statues on the belfry mysteriously came to life." And boy did they ever. But I must say, it makes for a pretty darn cool fight.